a billionaire CEO, powerless against his own child's cry. And then one woman, a waitress no one noticed, did the impossible. She quieted the baby in seconds, holding him like he was the center of the world. But that single moment lit a fire neither of them could put out. What happens when compassion collides with power? And when love is mistaken for scandal, will they survive the truth or lose everything? It all began with a cry. The city of Riverton woke under rain. A gray morning, streets slick and shiny, wheels slicing puddles with a hiss. On the corner, a small cafe named Maple and Steam glowed amber against the gloom. Inside, the scent of espresso clung to the air, coats dripped by the door, damp wool releasing its faint smell. The radio whispered low jazz, steady as a heartbeat. Behind the counter moved Mara Ellis. She was 26 but looked younger, shoulders narrow beneath a faded green apron, a tear stitched at the pocket. Cleaned so many times it looked soft as paper. She wiped the counter slowly. Strokes practice, hands red from the cold. Her ponytail was loose, strands of brown hair escaping near her cheek. To anyone watching, she seemed invisible. Background, noise. Then it happened. A sharp cry, sudden and high, cut through the cafe. It wasn't a whimper. It was full, throated panic. Heads turned, then looked away. A couple shifted uncomfortably. One student shoved earbuds deeper. The cry didn't stop. It built, louder, jagged, filling every corner. In the far booth stood a man, tall, coat the color of steel, rain still clinging to his shoulders. Adrian Hale, his arms full, rocking a baby near a stroller. The boy, Theo, no more than 11 months, fought against him. Face red, fists clenched, legs kicking hard. The sound was piercing, relentless. Adrian whispered into the baby's ear, "Shh, I've got you, I've got you." His voice cracked. The crying only rose, frantic, unstoppable. The barista slipped into the back. No one moved closer. Silence from every adult, except the man pacing with his son. Mara froze mid-wipe. Her eyes lifted, catching the child's heaving chest. The father's helpless eye. Something pulled her forward. She left the counter. Her shoes squeaked softly on the tile. Careful, like approaching a startled bird. Her voice low, steady. "Would you mind if I try?" Adrian turned sharply, caught off guard. Dark circles shadowed his eye, jaw tight with exhaustion. For a second, he looked offended, then defeated. "He doesn't cry like this." "Not usually," he said quickly, words tumbling. "I've tried everything. I don't know what's wrong." The baby shrieked, arching back. "It's okay," Mara murmured. She reached out, palm steady. "Maya." Adrian hesitated, then nodded once. "His name's Theo." She lifted the child carefully. His cries spiked, fists pounding, face wet with tears. But she didn't flinch. She pressed him against her shoulder. One breath. Two. Theo hiccuped, caught in surprise at the calm rhythm. Then, silence. Just a faint, trembling sigh. The cafe still. Even the rain outside seemed to hush. Customers glanced sideways, whispering. Adrian froze. His son, the boy who had been inconsolable, lay quiet now. Theo's tiny fingers clutched the torn edge of Mara's apron. She swayed gently, one hand patting his back, humming no tune at all. "How?" Adrian's throat caught. He tried again. "How did you do that?" Mara brushed hair from her cheek with a shoulder. "Sometimes they just need to hear a calm heartbeat." Adrian stared, undone. He'd built empires on control, numbers, algorithms. And here was this stranger in a frayed apron, quieting what he could not. Theo's breathing slow, his eyes drooped, lashes damp. Mara's voice lowered. "Do you want me to give him back?" Adrian whispered. "Not yet." He watched her ease, her gentleness. It wasn't an act. It was instinct, and something inside him broke open. Minutes later, Theo slept in his stroller. Adrian walked to the counter, pulling out his wallet. Then paused. "Thank you," he said. words stiff but sincere. I don't know what I would have done. Mara gave a small smile. He just needed comfort. That's all. He pulled a sleek black card from his coat, placing it on the counter. My office. If you ever need anything. Then he left. The door closed with a chime, his presence lingering like cold air. Mara stared at the card. Adrian Hale. Halcyon Systems. A co-worker leaned over. Why? Are you kidding? That's the Adrian Hale. Tech empire. Runs half the apps on my phone. Mara tucked the card beneath the register. Fancy shoe. Colder soles. She muttered, and returned to work. Night came. Her apartment above the laundromat was silent. Walls thin. Light bulb yellow. She sat on her bed. Small wooden box in her lap. The lid creaked. Inside, a hospital bracelet. A knit cap the size of a fist. One photograph. In it, Mara at 20. 2. Tired eye. Holding a newborn wrapped in white. Noel. 6 days alive. Her fingers trembled along the photo's edges. Doctors had called it a defect, a condition too rare. Too cruel. She called it her whole world. Gone in less than a week. Tears came now. Quiet. Years delay. No one at the cafe knew. No landlord. No co-worker. No friend. She carried the grief like a hidden scar. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. If you need help or just someone to believe in you, call me. Thank you for holding him like he mattered. Signed. Hey. She opened the envelope he'd left. A check for $1,800. But her breath hitched at the note. Not the money. Like he mattered. No one had said that to her before. Mara closed her eye, clutching the paper. For a second, it wasn't Theo she held earlier, but Noel. Her heart had answered before her mind could stop it. She typed slowly into her phone. I can help with Theo. Just part. Ty. Her thumb hovered, then pressed send, and with that, the silence of her apartment felt a little less crushing. Outside, rain kept falling, washing the streets of Riverton clean. But in one quiet room above a laundromat, a single choice shifted everything. Because sometimes, it only takes one steady heartbeat to change the course of 2 lives. And this was just the beginning. 2 weeks later, an elevator chimed high above Riverton. The penthouse doors opened to polished floors and glass walls that swallowed the skyline. Mara stepped out, her thrift store flats barely whispering against the marble. She clutched her canvas bag to her chest. It carried nothing fancy, just a bottle, diapers, and a toy lion she'd bought at a thrift sale. Her breath slowed as she walked forward. This wasn't her world. Adrian appeared in the doorway. He no longer looked like the man who'd left a card in her cafe. Here. He was sharper, pressed shirt, eyes scanning like he was already late for something. You came, he said, almost surprised. Mara adjusted her bag. You asked. Neither smiled. But something softened between them when Theo squealed from the floor. The baby crawled with unsteady determination. When he saw Mara, his whole face lit up, a sound like laughter spilling out. She dropped her bag and knelt, arms open. Hey, sunshine. Theo crashed into her embrace, clutching her sweater collar. Adrian stood frozen in the doorway, watching. He whispered under his breath. He doesn't do that for anyone else. From that day, afternoons fell into rhythm. Bottles warmed in the kitchen. Picture books spread across the rug. Building blocks clattering. Theo learned to babble, while Mara hummed lullabies she hadn't sung in years. She whispered nonsense rhymes, tracing circles on his back until he drifted to sleep. When he stirred, she whispered again, steady, patient. Her voice was the only thread that seemed to calm him. Adrian came home early once. He paused in the hall, briefcase forgotten, listening as Mara sang softly. Theo's laughter rang out, unpolished, free. Adrian leaned on the wall, unseen. And for the first time in months, he didn't feel the need to check his phone. He stayed there, motionless, watching the way she let Theo tug her hair, laughing instead of scolding. Something inside him cracked open, though he said nothing. At dinner, he lingered. "How long have you worked at Maple and Steam?" he asked carefully. "Since I was 19, Mara said, not looking up. "Longer than I meant." He hesitated, then asked, "Why this? Why help us?" Mara kept her eyes on the table. "Because I still remember how it feels to hold a child like he's the only thing that matters." Her voice thinned, but Adrian didn't press. Another day. Thunder rolled across the glass wall. Rain pounded the roof, shadows flickering against the skyline. Theo whimpered, restless, until Mara lifted him, pressing his cheek against hers. "Rain's just sky breathing," she whispered into his ear. The boy calmed instantly, clutching her shoulder. Adrian, standing nearby, said quietly, "My mother used to say the same thing." Mara glanced up, surprised. Adrian's gaze stayed fixed on the window, his jaw tense. He added softly, "She passed when I was in college. I never really talked about it." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Sometimes silence was the only answer that mattered. Adrian nodded once, almost grateful for her restraint. Days blurred. Mara brought her own touches, a blanket from home, a lullaby whispered half asleep. Theo's first clear sound came one Tuesday afternoon. "Bah," the boy chirped, clapping his hands. Mara gasped, laughing. "Did you hear that?" He said it. Adrian, halfway through a call, stopped mid-sentence, staring at them. He ended the call without a word, walking closer. Theo repeated it, louder, giggling. "Bah, bah." Adrian crouched down, his smile subtle but real. "That's me." But the moment stretched. Adrian glanced at Mara, their eyes meeting for longer than either expected. Neither spoke, but the silence said enough. One evening, Mara stayed late. Theo had refused to sleep until exhaustion finally claimed him in her arms. She drifted on the couch, Theo curled against her chest, the room humming with quiet. Adrian returned close to midnight. He stepped into the living room, seeing them bathed in soft lamplight, her head tilted back, strands of hair loose, apron dusted with milk stain. She looked like she belonged. He reached for a blanket, draping it gently over her shoulders and Theo's small frame. His hand hovered, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. She didn't stir. Adrian exhaled, sinking into the chair across from them. For once, he didn't open his laptop. He simply watched, listening to his son breathe. The next day, Mara noticed the blanket folded neatly on the couch. Her fingers brushed the fabric, and she knew it wasn't hers. She didn't ask questions, but she smiled quietly to herself. By the second week, her apartment felt less like prison walls and more like a resting place. She found herself humming even when alone, replaying Theo's giggles in her mind, and she began to fear how much she looked forward to those afternoons. One night, she pulled out the wooden box again. Her hands hovered over the photograph of Noel, trembling, whispering, "You'd be 3 now." She traced the baby cap with her finger, tears sliding down her face. Yet when she closed the box, there was something different this time. Not only grief, something like hope. Meanwhile, Adrian stared at footage on his security tablet. Clips from the living room cameras, motion activated. He found one where Mara sat cross-legged, playing peekaboo until Theo screamed with joy. Another clip, her reading softly while Theo clutched her hand. Another, where she sat alone after putting him to bed, just staring at the room as if memorizing it. Adrian felt his throat tighten. He shut the screen quickly, unable to watch more. The days felt lighter. Mara brought color into rooms built for efficiency. Theo laughed more, ate better, slept deeper. Adrian lingered longer after work. He asked questions, not about stock prices, but about Theo's favorite song, or the story Mara told before nap time. And once, he asked her directly, "What makes him smile like that?" Her answer was simple, "Because he knows he's safe." Adrian said nothing, but the words stayed with him. Still, something unspoken hovered in the air. Mara knew their lives came from different planets, And Adrian knew he was letting someone into a fortress he swore never to share. But every time Theo reached for her, every time his small fingers clung to her apron, that invisible line blurred, and every day, the choice became harder to ignore. Because a child had already made it for them. Rain fell again that Friday evening, wind shaking the glass walls of the penthouse. Theo drifted to sleep in Mara's arm, lips twitching as if still laughing in a dream. Adrian stood in the doorway, watching longer than usual. The storm outside cracked with thunder, lightning flashing across the skyline. Inside, the sound of a calm heartbeat steadied the room. And though no one said it aloud, everything was already changing. Because sometime, what begins as part-time help becomes something no one can walk away from. The storm had passed, but another one was waiting. It didn't come from the sky. It came from flashing cameras. A photo hit the internet late Monday morning. Grainy, taken from across the street. Mara holding Theo outside the glass tower of Halcyon Systems. The headline screamed, "Tech mogul, Adrian Hale, hiding secret family." Speculation exploded within hours. Comments multiplied, cruel and sharp. Gold digger, nanny turned lover. Is the baby even his? At the cafe, Mara's phone buzzed non-stop. She scrolled once, then stopped, her hands trembling. Faces of strangers judged her as if they had always known her. Adrian sat in a boardroom across town. Screens glowed with numbers, charts, and now her face. His assistant whispered, "Pale. It's trending higher than our product launch." Investors' voices filled the call. "This is reputational risk. Handle it before stock is touched." Adrian pinched the bridge of his nose, fighting for calm. By evening, Mara was packing Theo's diaper bag at the penthouse. Her movements were slow, deliberate, as if every fold was a farewell. When Adrian walked in, she looked up with eyes already resigned. "You saw it," she said softly. "Yeah." He set his briefcase down, uncertain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Mara's lips pressed thin. "I told you, I don't belong in your world." She placed a small silver key on the entry table, the one Theo liked to choose. Adrian stepped forward quickly. "Don't. Not because of headline. I can fix this." Her voice cut in. "Fern, you can't fix perception. You can't fix people's poison." Theo toddled into the hallway, sensing tension. He clutched the wall. "Wide. Then reached out with both hands. "Ma," he whimpered, voice breaking. Mara knelt, gathering him close, kissing his damp cheek. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Not goodbye. Just not now." Her whisper trembled as she set him back on his feet. Adrian's chest caved as the door clicked behind her. Theo cried so hard his small fists shook. For the first time, the penthouse echoed with emptiness, not glass. The next 3 nights shredded them both. Theo refused bottle, cried through naps, tossed in his crib. Every nanny Adrian hired lasted less than a shift. He walked the floors at 2 a.m. "Ma," rocking his son, whispering, I know. But his arms weren't enough. Theo screamed until his voice cracked. Exhausted, Adrian collapsed onto the couch with the boy still pressed to his chest. His shirt was soaked from baby tears, his mind frayed. It wasn't physical fatigue that broke him. It was silent. In desperation, he opened the security app on his phone. Clips stored automatically by motion. He hesitated, then pressed play. Mara appeared on the screen, hair tied messy, apron still on. She was playing peekaboo. Theo's laughter spilling loud and wild. The sound stabbed straight through Adrian's chest. Another clip. Her reading aloud. Theo gripping her finger as if it was the only anchor in the world. Another. She hummed while rocking him to sleep. Eyes distant, face calm. Then one final clip. She stood by the door after putting Theo to bed, staring around the room as if memorizing every detail. She lingered, then walked out. Adrian dropped the phone, his vision blurring. He hadn't cried since the funeral. Now, the tears came in silence. The next morning, he went to Maple and Steen. Inside, the barista at the counter was new. Does Mara still work here? Adrian asked, voice too sharp. The girl shook her head. She quit a few weeks ago. Said she was moving. Didn't say where. His shoulders sagged as he walked back into the cold Riverton wind. By dusk, he stood outside her old apartment building. The bricks were faded. The hallway smelled of lemon cleaner. He climbed the creaking stairs, knocking on doors. Most didn't know her name. One neighbor remembered. Quiet girl, always paying rent on time. Kept to herself. The manager shrugged. She's gone. Adrian left a package with him. Inside, a photograph of Theo holding a messy crayon sign. The letters uneven. Mommy Mara. Beneath it, a letter in his type. Business-like script, softened at the edges. I failed to protect the one who healed my son. I won't fail again. If you never speak to me, I'll understand. But if you still believe in what we had, meet me at Alder Park. Friday, 4 p.m. Ma. No pressure. Just truth. Friday came cold and clear. Leaves scattered in amber spirals across the pavement. Mara stood at the park entrance, coat collar pulled high, the letter folded in her pocket. She hadn't planned to come. Her feet had carried her anyway. Not curiosity, hope. Across the lake, Adrian sat on a stone bench, Theo asleep in the stroller beside him. He didn't move when she approached. Only when the wind rustled did he finally speak. I was good at building walls, he said quietly. Years perfecting them. But you didn't try to break them. You just stood there. And somehow, they fell. Mara lowered herself beside him. I built walls too. Thought the less I loved, the less I'd lose. But then Theo, her voice cracked. I couldn't not love him. Adrian turned to her fully now, his face stripped bare. I treated you like a risk. But the truth, you're the only part that ever made my world real. Silence hung, raw and trembling. She stared at the sleeping boy, his tiny hand clutching the strap of the stuffed lion. Her voice came steady. If I come back, there's no going back to the way things were. Adrian nodded. I know. And this time, I won't run. For a while, they sat in quiet. Not stranger, not yet family, but something fragile, reborn, waiting to grow. Still, the world outside wasn't done with them. Headlines didn't stop just because hearts tried to heal. And shadows had a way of following when least expected. Because someone out there wasn't finished with Mara Ellis. The quiet of Alder Park faded quickly. Within days, headlines twisted again. Someone fed the press more photos. Uglier caption, crueler whispers. One morning, Mara's phone buzzed until the screen nearly burned her hand. A new article. Mystery blonde manipulates CEO. Insider claims she's after control. Her face filled the page, paired with Theo's, as if they were merchandise. She closed the phone with shaking fingers. I can't keep living like this, she whispered to herself. But in her chest, she knew running hadn't worked either. Meanwhile, at Halcyon Systems headquarters, Adrian faced the board. Your personal life has become a liability. One director snapped, another leaned forward. Distance yourself or step aside. Adrian's jaw clenched. This is my family. Your shareholders don't care, came the reply. They want silence, not sentiment. The room erupted in crosstalk. Risks, percentages, headline, image. Adrian finally rose, voice sharp as steel. If silence means betraying them, I won't play. That night, he found Mara sitting by the river. She held the toy lion against her knees, staring at the water. You should have listened to them, she murmured. He stepped closer. No, they listened to me. And tomorrow, they'll hear it. She looked at him. Fear and hope collided. You'll ruin everything. Then let it be ruined, but not us. The next day, the Halcyon launch event buzzed with reporters. Flashbulbs lit the stage. Journalists shouting questions even before the doors opened. Theo's stroller rolled in quietly beside Mara, who walked with steady steps. The room fell into a hush. People craned to see the woman from the headlines. Phones lifted. Cameras blinked. Speculation thick as smoke. Questions fired like bullets. Who is she to you? Is this a stunt? Are you hiding a second family? Mara's throat tightened. But then she heard Theo stir, soft and restless. She straightened, stepping toward the microphones. I was once a nursing student, she began, voice trembling but clear. I left school after burying my own son. I know how to hold a child, but I never learned how to stage a performance. Her words fell heavy, silencing the jeers. Reporters shifted uneasily. A few lowered their camera. Blinking, Adrian appeared beside her, his presence like a wall of iron. She is not a rumor, he said, his voice carrying across the hall. She is not a liability. She is family. He turned, eyes locking with the board seated in the front. If I must choose between numbers and truth, I'll choose truth. The room erupted. But then, Theo wriggled forward, reaching for Mara. And in a voice small but fierce, he cried, "Mom." The word hit like thunder. Microphones caught it. Cameras captured it. Every headline paused, every whisper stilled. Mara froze, tears filling her eyes. She lifted Theo into her arm, holding him tight. Adrian stood rooted, his chest heavy with something that finally felt like release. The press roared, snapping photo after photo. But the story had already changed. It wasn't scandal anymore. It was undeniable love. Behind the scenes, a different story unraveled. The anonymous account posting rumors was traced back. A name surfaced, Riley Shore. Mara knew it instantly. An old classmate from nursing school, once close, who'd dropped out after debts and despair. Riley, who had known about Noel, about the grief Mara never told strangers. They met that evening in a dim cafe. Riley's eyes darted, guilt laced with bitterness. You had everything handed to you. Even pain looked poetic on you. Mara set down a plain envelope. There's a card inside for a counseling clinic, and enough cash for you to start over. Riley scoffed, then faltered. Why help me? Because hurting me didn't heal you, Mara said softly. And because Theo deserves a world where people try again. Her words landed heavier than money. Riley closed her eye, tears slipping free. She took the envelope with shaking hand, whispering, "I'm sorry." Mara only nodded. Some wounds didn't need reopening. Later that night, Mara returned to her small apartment. She pulled out the wooden box once more, setting it on her lap. The photograph of Noel still rested inside, edges worn from years of touch. She whispered, "You're still with me. Every time I hold him, I remember you." Her voice broke, but not in despair. This time, it carried peace. At the penthouse, Adrian sat in the dark, Theo asleep on his chest. Mara stepped through the door quietly. Setting her bag down, Adrian looked up, eyes tired but unguarded. "You still want me here?" she said, not as a question, "More than I've wanted anything," he answered simply. The silence after was enough to bridge every wall left standing. Theo stirred, lifting his head just enough to murmur, "Mommy." Mara closed her eyes, holding back tears. She whispered, "I'm here." Adrian's hand reached across, resting gently over hers. No press camera, no board members. Just 3 people in a room that finally felt like home. But outside, the city still whispered. And tomorrow's headlines waited with sharp teeth. Love had won the moment, but battles were far from finished, because every beginning asks for proof. And theirs had only just begun. Weeks passed. The headlines slowly lost their sting, replaced by other scandals in the city. But in one corner of Riverton, a quieter story was still unfolding. Mara returned to the penthouse most afternoons. Theo would greet her with arms wide, his giggles echoing down the hall. Every time, Adrian's chest loosened as if he could finally breathe again. One evening, she noticed a draft of something left on the coffee table. A book proposal, typed in neat margin. The title read, "The Child Who Stopped Crying." Adrian caught her looking. "It's yours," he said simply. "Your story deserves more than whispers." Mara shook her head. "No one wants to read about grief." "They will," Adrian replied, his tone quiet but certain, "because you wrote it in the way you hold him, without fear of breaking." Mara touched the pages, her eyes wet. Months later, a bookstore in Riverton strung balloons above its door. A banner hung. Book launch, Mara Ellis. The small shop buzzed with laughter. Toddlers chasing each other between chairs. Behind the curtain, Mara smoothed the hem of her pale blue dress. Her hands trembled as she held the first printed copy. She whispered, "Breathe," to herself. Through the curtain gap, she saw them. Adrian in the front row, Theo on his lap, waving the stuffed lion in triumph. Her lips curved in a small, steady smile. When her name was called, she stepped on stage. The crowd clapped warmly. Neighbors, old co-workers, even strangers. Mara gripped the microphone, her voice low but clear. This story began on an ordinary morning. A baby cried, and no one knew how to stop it. She paused, scanning the room, until someone simply chose to hold him. That moment changed everything. Her voice broke slightly, then steady. Love doesn't always arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it arrives in silence, with a lullaby, or a steady heartbeat. The room fell still, listening. She closed with a smile toward Adrian. That child taught me grief isn't the end of love. It's the reason love matters at all. The audience rose, applause filling the shop. After the signing, the autumn sun slanted low outside. Mara stepped into the golden light, book pressed to her chest. Adrian stood beneath a maple tree, Theo dozing in the stroller. In Adrian's hand was a small velvet box. He didn't rush. He simply looked at her, eyes steady, heart open. "You gave me words," he said softly. "Let me give you a promise." He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. Inside the lid, etched in silver, "For the one who made us a home." Mara gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Adrian dropped to one knee. "Mara Ellis, will you be not just his home, but mine, too?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she whispered, "Yes." 1,000 times. "Yeah." Theo stirred, clapping his small hands as if he understood. The crowd outside the bookstore erupted in cheers, strangers smiling wide. For a moment, Riverton felt like it belonged to them. 6 months later, sunlight poured into their kitchen. Mara sat at the table, reading a storybook to Theo, who laughed at every silly voice. The counters were cluttered with paint swatches and sketches for her next dream. A wooden sign leaned against the wall. Theo's Corner, a cafe and children's bookshop, designed for parents and kids to find refuge. It would open in spring, built from savings, love, and second chances. Adrian appeared in the doorway, sleeves rolled, coffee in hand. He kissed her temple. "You're glowing." She laughed, pointing to her cheek. "That's just yogurt." Later that week, their backyard filled with balloons for Theo's 3rd birthday. Neighbors brought folding chairs. Kids chased bubbles through the grass. On the table sat a homemade lemon cake, uneven but perfect. A little girl tugged at Mara's dress. "Are you his real mom?" she asked innocently. Before Mara could answer, Theo shouted, "She's my forever." Silence followed, then smiles all around. Mara crouched, hugging him tight, whispering, "Forever, sweetheart, forever." Adrian stood behind her, steady hand resting on her shoulder. As dusk settled, they walked along the Leroy River Trail. Theo ran ahead, chasing duck, laughter echoing against the water. Mara and Adrian walked behind, fingers intertwined. An elderly couple passed, smiling warmly. "Beautiful boy," the man said. "First child," Adrian answered without hesitation. "The first of many, we hope." Mara laughed, leaning against him. The river shimmered, twilight painting long shadows across the ground. Everything felt both fragile and indestructible in that moment. And then, a final twist, the kind that changes meaning without words. Theo stopped by the water. Turning to them with arms wide, he shouted, "Mom, Dad." For the first time, both froze, hearts colliding. Mara covered her mouth, tears spilling, while Adrian's face broke into unguarded joy. They rushed forward, scooping him up between them. The three stood there, wrapped in each other's arms. No camera, no headline, no shareholders, just a family, chosen and real. The sky deep into lavender, the ducks scattered, ripples widening across the lake. And in that silence, only one truth remained. Sometimes it takes losing everything to find where you belong. Sometimes it takes one child's cry to teach you what a heartbeat means. And sometimes forever begins in the simplest word, home. Thank you for spending your time with this story. If it touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your support helps us keep creating moments that stir the soul. Until next time, take care of yourself, cherish the ones you love, and may your days be filled with peace and gentle light.